Welcome into Sports Memo's betting podcast, college basketball for Thursday night. We're breaking down the card here with Mid-Major Matt. Mid-Major Matt, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Doing well, Drew. Excited that we're in conference play and January, just a couple of months away from the madness, but still plenty of time for people to add to their resumes.
There absolutely is. I think it's actually a better time to be betting college basketball right now than waiting till March. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, look, there's different handicap here. Obviously, you're starting to get some back-to-backs and some second matchups, so that's always interesting to see how teams handle playing a team a second time. There's some conferences where they're actually, I believe in Conference USA, Texas, San Antonio, and UTEP are actually playing today because we're taping this on Wednesday and this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do in terms of altering, the handicap when the venue changes.
Yeah, the old back-to-back rematch in Conference USA. But, Matt, let's try to find some more winners than losers. We're talking Thursday night's card, 7 p.m. Eastern tip here, 625, 626, the rotation numbers. If you're following along at home, William and Mary at Delaware. We got a total of 143, competitively priced game here, Matt. It's a pick 'em at most shops. There is a -1 out there. William and Mary versus Delaware. This one in Delaware, total of 143. I'll throw it over to you.
William Mary has been one of the best mid-major stories in the country. They lose their longtime head coach who gets fired. There's a attrition of a roster there. A couple of scholarship guys leave. There's some unhappiness with some of the new guys that are coming in. But the biggest key for them was Nathan Knight decided not to go pro. He put his name in the transfer portal. He even considered going to the draft, decided not to go, comes back. And look, I've talked about this a lot. When it comes to mid-major schools, you have to have a good system, a great coach, or some sort of hook. And William Mary's hook is they play two really good centers. Nathan Knight, 6'11", 6'10" or so, really good inside, especially in the CAA where there's not a lot of size. And Andy Van Vliet, who you may remember from his Big Ten days, he comes over. He's a 7-footer, can shoot threes. They've got a really good transfer point guard. William Mary's 13-5 this season, 5-0 in the CAA, and 7-4 on the road for the longest time. And I don't know if it's still true. They had the most road wins in college basketball. You look at the numbers a little bit. Their offense, 55.5% effective field goal percentage, according to Ken Pomeroy, which is 6th in the country. The only thing that they don't really do well is they don't force turnovers. They're 352nd in the country, which really shows that they're pretty towards the bottom. This is an offense that can score. This is a team that won't be intimidated by being on the road against Delaware. They've gone under in 24 of their last 39 road games, including 6 of 11 this year. You look on the other side. Delaware started out 9-0 in the season and has lost 6 of their last 9 since. They're 5-1 at home, but the loss at home was to another quality team, Charleston. Surprisingly, Delaware's got a solid offense. They're 53.6% from two-point land, 35.2% from three-point land. They also don't force turnovers, not as badly as William and Mary because it's 304th, but Delaware just doesn't force turnovers either. 12 overs in 17 line games this year. Quickly looking at the 3 meetings from last year. Delaware won at home 58-56 when they were playing a lot slower. William and Mary won at home 84-63 when they played that more fast-paced style at home. And then Delaware won on the neutral court in the CAA tournament 85-79. I'm more apt to lean to the over here. I think both of these offenses are very effective. I think they can get up shots on each other. We're not going to see a lot of turnovers. We talked about this during our Mysterious podcast last week about William and Mary totals, that they don't usually come this low. I know that they've trended to the under on the road, but that's because in the past their offense hasn't translated. But this team's hardened. They've won road games. They're 7-4 away from home. I think there could be a live dog here, especially if you get the +1. And I would potentially look at the over here because I think both of these teams may be able to get what they want offensively.
And it's interesting that you brought up all 3 matchups from last year in terms of it sounded like the home team controlling the pace and then neutral score was an over as well. Is that how it went last year, Matt?
Yeah, and the difference is that William and Mary last year basically just ran, and they played no defense, and their offense wasn't very efficient on the road, and that's why the 58-56 score. If you looked at William and Mary on the road last year, and you looked at them at home against a lot of these teams in the CAA, that's what it was last year. They scored a ton of points. They would go over sometimes in the first half with some of their scores. They couldn't set the totals high enough last year on William and Mary. Now They're a little bit better on defense, but the offense is still really efficient. It could be a hold your nose type game, but with it being really close, you may get free throws. Overtime may come into play. So I lean to the over here. I lean to William & Mary as a road underdog potentially. I don't know if I take them as a road favorite. I don't think I trust them yet if it somehow seesaws past the pick 'em, but beware of the Tribe this year if you're looking at future teams to win the CAA.
Great start. First game down, second game up. Watch and win opportunity for everyone out there. This one on ESPN, 7 o'clock Eastern tip. We got 629-630 Cincinnati at Memphis. Of course, Memphis ranked number 22 in the country. Memphis -5 at home, 141.5 the total here, Matt.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will see this total at first and be like, oh, it's an over because it's Memphis. They're at home. But if you look at the defensive numbers for both of these teams, they're pretty ridiculous. Cincinnati's 10-6, 3-1 in conference. Their road win came last time out against UCF, 68-54. They've allowed 60 points or less in 3 of their last 4 contests. But here's the problem. When they've taken this step up on the road, they haven't translated as much. Game 1, way back in November, they lost 64-56 at Ohio State. They lost at Xavier in the big crosstown rivalry game, 73-66, but they did win at Tennessee, 78-66. Cincinnati's gone under in 18 of their last 25 road games. Now, obviously, that spans, a couple of seasons here, but at least it's something to look at with this team. You've got the Cumberlands there. John Brandon doesn't want to run. We saw that a lot in North Kentucky. When he was there, this is a team that's very happy running some half-court sets and getting things going and making this game a slog. Memphis wants to run a little bit. They've won every home game this year by double digits except for 2. They beat Ole Miss by 1, and they lost that game to Georgia by 3 points. Memphis, the 11th quickest pace in the country. They have the 6th shortest offensive possession time in the country. So that's another thing to consider here is they want to run. I don't think Cincinnati will let them here. Memphis, number 1 in the country against 2-point defense. 38.4% teams are shooting from inside the 3-point line. And they have the second best block rate, too. Remember, James Wiseman's gone, but there's still a ton of talent here. Last year, Cincinnati won at Memphis 69-64. They won at home 71-69. Cincinnati doesn't look like a terrible underdog here, especially if you think they can ugly this game up. You got a lot of young kids on Memphis. If they start getting frustrated, Cincinnati could capitalize on that, especially if Jerron Cumberland's playing well. Javen Cumberland. I think that Cincinnati could ugly this game up and is worth a look here as an underdog, don't you think?
I can see it. Yeah, I think Memphis is a tough handicap, Matt. With Wiseman gone now, and you're right, they do have a lot of talent left. Obviously, not nearly as much without him. Likely the top 5 pick. It's just I haven't gotten a good read on him. I haven't bet him total wise or side wise since he's left. I mean, -5. I'm not really comfortable laying that, but I would look towards the over of 141 just because they are the home team. They are going to look to push it. So if you made me bet this, I would be on the over, Matt.
Well, and also, obviously Cincinnati's had their ugly games. I mean, if you look at that game they lost at home, I think it was to Colgate. Like, this team's capable of laying some eggs, and they're capable of being really ugly. It's really a clash of styles. Can Memphis run, or can Cincinnati slog it up? And it really is, to the viewer, the people watching this, if you like Memphis and you think they can push it, then, you're going to take Memphis. You're going to take the over. If you like Cincinnati and you think it's going to be slower, I think these are good correlated bets here, Drew. I think if you like the home team, you're taking the over. If you like the road team, you're taking the under.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Matt. Good stuff. And guys, just so you know, we are recording this late on Wednesday night. This is the Thursday night college basketball card. If you're liking the content, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Also, please feel free to reach out on Twitter at MidMajorMatt or at DrewMartinBets. Let us know if you're liking the podcast, the video, the simulcast here. And if not, let us know some reasons why. And we're always down to improve the podcast going forward. We're breaking down 4 games on the slate. Also get a best bet for the Thursday night card. We got 8 o'clock Eastern tip up next, 653-654. Grand Canyon at Chicago State, 147.5 the total. Bigger spread here, Matt. Grand Canyon -16.5 as we're talking right now. Why'd you want to talk about this one?
Well, so I obviously mid-major guy. I just want to alert the people who watch the podcast and listen to us about Chicago State. The Cougars are 4-15. They're 0-4 in the WAC. They are shooting 44.1% for 2-point land. They have turned the ball over in 26.6% of their possessions. but they play the worst defense you could possibly have. Like, they just don't play any defense. This is honestly one of the worst defenses in the league and one of the worst teams in the league. But just to put it out there, 28th fastest tempo. Opponents have had the 21st shortest possession time on defense. Chicago State's wins were over Judson, Purdue Northwest, North Park, and SIU Edwardsville. So 3 of their 4 wins were against lower-level teams. They've lost at home by 13 to Loyola, Maryland, 38 to Oral Roberts, 15 to Northern Illinois, 21 to Utah Valley, and 32 to Seattle. So if you feel comfortable laying that many points on the road with Grand Canyon, I'm telling you it's going to be potentially okay. Grand Canyon is 5-11. It's a team I wanted to play before the season, but they've had so many injuries, and they just got Mikey Dixon, the transfer from St. John's. He's played a couple games for him. We know how great Grand Canyon is at advertising. They're randomly on the TV commercials quite a bit. Dan Marley's the head coach. And also, they have one of the better home court advantages in the country. Like, if you've ever watched a Grand Canyon game, that place gets nuts for these games. Problem is, they just haven't figured it out yet. Their wins were against Arkansas Pine Bluff, Montana State, Illinois State, Mount St. Mary's, and EIU. They've lost their 3 true road games this year. And it's more putting stuff on people's radars here. Grand Canyon's a better team than the record. There's going to be situations down the line, whether it's you and I talking about it or anybody else, where Grand Canyon is a play. And Chicago State, you're going to see a lot of big-time spreads for them where they're on the road. They just got blasted by New Mexico State. Like, Chicago State is a terrible team. Last year, Chicago State lost at Grand Canyon 80-46. They lost at home 90-59. I'm more putting it on people's radars. Grand Canyon's better than the record, so we're going to look to play them in certain situations. And Chicago State's one of the worst teams in the country, and they're almost insta-fade when you see them come up on the rotation.
Matt, great stuff, man. And also, Grand Canyon having that home field advantage. They're obviously on the road here, laying a big number. How do you feel about laying big numbers on the road in college basketball?
So I don't do it very often. I know that, I know that my style is a little different than everybody's. I look at the mid-major games first. I skip over a lot of the big-time games. But I also, I like Grand Canyon. They're going to win this game. The problem is with laying big numbers like this on the road, or at least I think, is there's always backdoor potential. Chicago State could have a late flurry. If Grand Canyon is slightly off, if they're not taking them seriously, if they're, there's probably going to be 6 people at this game, so there's not going to be much of an atmosphere. If they kind of get lulled to sleep, that's the reason why I don't like laying big numbers in situations like this. I wish I could tell you to take the over here, but if Chicago State gets 50 points, I don't feel like Grand Canyon can score 100. So this was more of a situational thing for me to tell the viewers. Grand Canyon's a play-on team in the future, and then Chicago State is a fade team in the future, especially away from home. Okay,
great stuff, Matt. We got one game left here, guys, on the Sports Memo podcast for Thursday night college basketball. We'll have Matt Holt, a guest of the show, a friend of Sports Memo here, my friend in Las Vegas, to break down the UFC Conor McGregor card versus Cowboy Cerrone here in T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. So that will be Thursday's podcast. We got the Degenerate special here, Matt. This is 11 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Pacific. Santa Clara at Gonzaga. That is the number 1 team in the nation. Gonzaga here. We got ESPN2 broadcasting it, and Gonzaga laying 20 points at home. 155 the total here, Matt.
So Gonzaga, what is there to say about Gonzaga? 18-1, 4-0 in conference. If you look at their West Coast Conference action so far, they beat Portland 85-72 on the road. They beat Pepperdine 75-70 at home. They won at San Diego 94-50, and they won at Loyola Marymount 87-62. With regards to handicapping Gonzaga games, look, they can name their score on pretty much anybody. The big key for me is, what's their next game? Is it St. Mary's? Is St. Mary's at home or on the road? Is it BYU? I don't know necessarily how much of a look ahead there is for BYU, but coming up this weekend, coming up next for Gonzaga is BYU. So a small factor here, but look at Gonzaga. Their offense, second most effective field goal percentage and best adjusted efficiency according to Ken Pomeroy. So when they get baskets, they really make it work. Last year, they won this game 91-48 at home, 98-39 on the road. But this year's Santa Clara team's not bad. 15-3, 2-1 in the West Coast Conference. They lost by 18 at Stanford. They lost by 31 at Nevada, and they lost by 19 at San Francisco. Hence the big number here. Anytime you've seen Santa Clara take a step up, they've struggled big time. But they're also coming off a win at St. Mary's 67-66. So they're feeling good about themselves. Their next best win was Wazoo at home. That was around 155 on Ken Pom. This team plays quick, 48th quickest pace, the 26th most effective field goal percentage, Their problem is they're really bad against the three-pointer in defense. 318th in three-point defense, 37.3% from long range. I think the best way potentially to play this game is the first half over. I've seen Gonzaga in the first half of a lot of games go over the total. I think Santa Clara, who plays at a quicker pace, can push the pace a little bit here. And even if they're not making their shots, we get plenty of possessions here. So I might be looking at the first half over in this game, thinking Gonzaga gets out, they get their buckets, they get their three-pointers, Santa Clara contributes to it, and whatever the number is, I'm guessing it's going to be low 70s for something like this. I think we could see a first half over here in Gonzaga and Santa Clara.
He's at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter, and breaking down 4 games here on the podcast. If you're liking what you're hearing, you can always check out his service at sportsmemo.com. We got a special coupon code for the podcast, MMM29 at checkout. We'll give you his 3-day all-access pass at sportsmemo.com. You'll get every play releases to all the clients out there for 3 days, just $29. MMM29 at checkout is the coupon code. Matt, a best bet you want to throw out there to the listeners?
Gonzaga first half, the over. I think the Gonzaga first half over is my best bet. I would watch the William & Mary line. I like them somewhat as an underdog. I do not like them as much as a favorite in that one against Delaware, but Gonzaga first half over is my best bet for the podcast.
All right, and we got a total of 155 in the game. It is posted here at the Westgate and a lot of offshore places as well. Do you have about a basis for what the first half line will be? I guess just short of, 77?
I'm guessing 75-ish because, I mean, look, they have a pretty much, a nice formula when it comes to this stuff. I'm trying to look it up myself to see because some places the first halves are up. But, I mean, I'm guessing around 75-ish. Let's see, scrolling down real quick. And, yeah, you're right. There's no real first half lines anywhere yet for tomorrow. But, I'm guessing it's going to be around 75-ish. I'm guessing, maybe 76. I think that we could see like a 42, 35, 40. I think Gonzaga cracks 40, and I think Santa Clara can get some points. And even if Santa Clara doesn't, maybe Gonzaga gets to 50, and then we're looking at like a 50 to 30 something. But first half over, between 75, 78. Don't let it get to 80 or anything like that.
All right, Matt. Great stuff. As always, guys, check Matt out on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. If you're in the state of Virginia, he's on ESPN Richmond there in the mid-afternoon. And Matt, anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
No, certainly. As Drew said, follow me on Twitter. It's great. And by the way, just to plug real quick, I'm on like a 70% run in the NFL totals the last couple months, just 3 games left. So check out my NFL stuff. All
right. Matt, great stuff. Best of luck with your college basketball. And guys, we'll talk tomorrow with Matt Holt talking UFC, Cowboy Cerrone and Conor McGregor. Come back and join us. Best of luck with your bets.